Ah, here we are in the late classical period, from 400 to 323 BCE. Now, art historians see the late classical period as still being part of the classical world, but there are stirrings, rumblings of change brewing. Why? What's happening? Okay. One of the cultural things, the context for this rumble, this change, is credited to another war, the Peloponnesian War. The Peloponnesian War is a war fought, well, between the Greek city-states. Ah, what? I know. So I was building up this animosity to Athens during the whole Acropolis thing because that's how everybody else felt about Athens. And around 431, they had just had enough. And so they started to make alliances against Athens. Here in this map, what you're seeing are the major players around the Adriatic. We have the Persian Empire, the Macedonians, who occupy the upper area of mainland Greece. They're not big and powerful. They got a king going on, but they're going to come fast and hard very soon. So keep them in mind. They're kind of like, I like to make the joke, they're kind of like the Canada to the United States. I'm sorry if you're Canadian, but it's like, oh, our neighbors in the north, they're kind of doing your own thing. They're kind of seen as almost a little like slow or silly in some ways, but they're gonna surprise us all because they're gonna come. Okay, so Macedonia is up there. But what starts to happen in 431 is a series of battles erupts and people make alliances. The yellow is showing you those who aligned with Athens. And then the other two major city-states in Greece, Thebes and Sparta, also create their own alliances. So what you're seeing here is the alliance with Sparta is in pink, and blue are those who remained neutral, but also, well, I'm not going to spoil it for you. Okay. You want me to spoil it for you? Okay. Eventually, in 404, the neutral party, aligned with Thebes and Sparta and will attack and defeat Athens. Oh my gosh, I know. All of this infighting. One of the reasons why Athens will lose this battle is because there was a plague that came through. I know, right? So a plague came through and weakened Athens' resources at home, and therefore Sparta, Thebes, and those neutral parties will come and destroy Athens and take over the larger control over this. But this will still lead to infighting. And Sparta will then fight with Thebes, and then Thebes will take over from Sparta. And by the mid-300s, Greece is just weak, and they can't handle any of this. And so then they're open for invasion from Macedonia. Okay, so that's a spoiler alert. But let's think about this in terms of the chaos and these challenges and how that's going to be reflected in the art. Because if you think about it, the classical period is all about balance, and balance is harmony, and balance is perfection, right? So they have been in this visual, mathematical, music, poetry pursuit for harmony, for balance, for symmetry. And then these wars happen? But I thought that we were trying so hard to be so perfect. War's not perfect. And so what we see and what art historians will credit as the late classical is this not instability, but this charge, this challenge to the pursuit of balance. You start to see things change. Does that make sense? Let's look at an artwork and see if it helps. Our first artwork for the late classical. So you notice there, our period style is late classical. The artwork is a sculpture by Praxitiles, and it is Aphrodite of Knidos. The Aphrodite of Knidos. And up, how did you know? You guessed it already. This is a Roman copy of a what? Wait, what? Marble? But Miss Cortez, there's a post there. I was gonna say a bronze one. I know, it's I throw you these crumbs of knowledge and then they get challenged, but it's okay. It was a marble original. And it's okay to have that stay. Sometimes these things happen. It wasn't bronze. It was marble. But it's gone. So we are looking at a Roman copy. Okay? Okay. The Roman copy of Praxitiles' Aphrodite of Knidos. Now, I don't think I officially introduced you to Aphrodite. We did look at her on the Parthenon pedimental sculptures, but Aphrodite is the goddess of love and beauty, and her attributes, ways that we easily can recognize her, are that she's often depicted bathing or holding an apple. What? I know. We'll talk about the apple soon. I don't want you to get confused and use her Roman name, Venus. Her Greek name is Aphrodite. The Romans will use the same goddess of love and beauty, but they're going to call her Venus. Now, looking at the title again, Aphrodite of Knidos. It's simply telling you where she was located. She was part of a temple on the island of Knidos. It's way over here. Here you see it in this more Latin spelling, Knidos. So why are we looking at her, Miss Cortez? Greek goddess, naked, what's going on? Why is this a Roman copy? Well, the fact that it's a Roman copy should be a giveaway that this was world famous, right? It was. This was world famous. The Romans loved it. They wanted copies of it. There are multiple copies with slight variations as to her face and her head because they're all copies off of the original, which is now lost. The original, which was housed in a tiny temple on the tiny island of Knidos. Here it is. Here's a drawing of what we believe it would have looked like. So how'd this happen and why is she so famous if it's just a tiny island in the middle of the Adriatic or the Aegean? Did I say Adriatic before? Ugh. In the middle of the Aegean, and she's not in Athens. What's the big deal with her? Well, she was world famous. People visited. They came from all over the world to see her, and they were overcome with love for this statue. We have travel journals from visitors. This one Roman guy, he talked about seeing her in the temple in the round and saying that she was making him a welcoming look with her slight smile, as if she knew she was being watched. Oh, goodness gracious. Wait. Temple? People seeing her? What is this? Okay. The statue was originally housed in a round temple that was in a garden. The garden was part of the sacred garden of Venus, and the garden was filled with all of these flowers, with these blooms and these sweet smells, and people were encouraged to walk around the sacred garden in order to appreciate love and beauty and sex, because after all, flowers are how plants have sex, right? Oh. So the temple to Venus was open. It had round columns. There was no center naos, and she was placed in the center of this round space. And there was the way the description is that there was a pool of water around her, and she was standing on a post as if she was surrounded by this water, like she was about to take a bath. Now, what's interesting about this piece is that, well, what we see is Aphrodite taking off her clothes. You see she's completely naked. She's taken off of her robe, and she's draping it on this urn of fresh water. And she's about to step down into that pool to take her bath. It's as if we've caught her in the moment. Praxitiles sculpted this for a different location. I'm sorry, I'm being confusing, and I don't mean to. Praxitiles carved this nude statue, and it was originally meant for a different temple to Aphrodite on a different island. It was originally supposed to go to the island of Kos, which is right next to, it's this one here, I'm highlighting it. There's Knidos, Kos. What had happened is Kos, the island of Kos, wanted a statue of Venus, and they hired Praxitiles. Praxitiles gave them the statue of Venus, Aphrodite, in the nude. They were not used to this. Nobody was used to this. This was, as far as we know, the first female nude statue. And it's of a goddess. So the people of Kos got their marble statue and they were like, oh, no. This is crazy. Praxitiles, we can't have a nude Aphrodite. You know, we like our men nude, but our women are always clothed. You can't give us this. So they asked for a new statue, a clothed Aphrodite. And Praxitiles did that. So he gave Kos the clothed Aphrodite. And then the neighboring island, Knidos, said, you know what? We'll take it. We'll take the nude one. We'll have it over here. And so they brought it to the island of Knidos, built their temple, their sacred garden, and they became the hot spot of tourism all the way into the Roman period. Everybody came to Knidos and nobody came to Kos to see the clothed Aphrodite. Right? Okay, so let's look at her a little bit closer. What posture does she stand in? Contrapposto. Okay. We got one active leg, one passive leg. So balance, beauty, perfection. Sure. She's about to step forward into that pool of water. And, well, just imagine you're in this sacred garden and you're walking around this piece. Let's walk around her together. Here we see her from the side. We see portions of her, and yet other portions of her are hidden from view. Here from the back, we see portions of her, but others are hidden from view. Think about our discussion of composition, a balance of opposites. She seems to tease us by hiding and revealing as we move around. She's giving and taking. It's a balance of opposites. If we look here, she's revealing herself as she puts her clothes on that fresh water urn, but she's also hiding herself. She is standing in contrapposto, but her hand with this gesture covering her pubis is a new vocabulary term. We call this Venus pudica. Venus pudica. It's Latin, so that's why it says Venus and not Aphrodite. I know, but you know now You can switch those two, but when we're talking about Greece, let's call her Aphrodite, but the vocab word is Venus. Venus Pudica, Latin for the goddess of love's modest and vulnerable pose. So this pose that she's in, this posture of holding her hand in front of her private parts, that is so characteristic of other depictions of Venus, of Aphrodite, that it's given its own vocabulary term. When we think about this posture that she stands in, and we think about how we would come upon her in the gardens, does it look like she's really trying to hide herself? If we've stepped into her space as she's about to take a bath, she should be like, oh, no, oh, hiding, but she's not. I mean, why would she? She's Venus, goddess. She's Aphrodite, goddess of love and sex and beauty. So instead, she turns her body in such a way that while she's trying to be modest, she's also highlighting how naked she really is. The term Venus Pudica comes from the same root for pudenda, which means shame, and genitalia. I know, we have so many body issues, right? So pudica comes from the same word as genitals and shame. Does it look like she has a lot of shame here, though? No, she's like, oh no, you've got me. Oh. And she lets us look upon her. In fact, one Roman poet who had come to see her at the island of Knidos said, "Nothing hides her beauty, which is entirely exposed, other than the furtive hand veiling her modesty." Oh, goodness gracious. This became such a famous work of art. People came from all over the world. People were saying it was superior to all other works, and that none other than Praxitiles should be considered a master sculptor. They loved this bold step in being a goddess and being nude. It also kind of humanizes her, right? Just like we saw with the Nike adjusting her sandal, humanizing experience of a goddess. Here we have this vulnerable goddess before us, because I think it's just hilarious. I'm gonna read you another a couple of stories about people visiting the site at Knidos. So she's caught in this private moment, and we, the viewers, are kind of like voyeurs, right? One Roman poet described how he and his two friends went, and he came upon her and he said, "By Hercules, what a harmonious back, what rounded thighs, begging to be caressed with both hands. How well the lines of her cheek flow, neither too skinny, showing the bones, nor so voluminous as to droop. How inexpressible the tenderness of that smile pressed into her dimpled loins. How precious that line running from thigh to leg to foot." Oh my God. And then another claimed, "Oh, lucky Mars, to be chained to such a goddess." He's speaking of the myth in which Mars, god of war, he and Aphrodite, or Venus, they had an affair, and they were caught by her husband Hephaestus, and he chained them together and brought them to Zeus for their shame. So this guy's like, "Oh, I would love to be chained up to her." Oh. Now, how does this relate to the late classical period? Let's go back to the term Venus Pudica. Venus Pudica, shame. What historians see happening here is a challenge to the confidence, to the assuredness of the Greek people. Their unwavering sense of superiority over others. And here we see a goddess expressing some form of shame, modesty. Praxitiles, many have argued, was then requiring us, the Greeks, to also pause and exhibit some modesty, to have a sense of humility because things are not going well. When he sculpted this in 350, this was already during the Peloponnese Wars, where there was this horrific collapse of Greek stability. So many historians believe that his choice to make a nude goddess wasn't just to be erotic. His choice of a nude goddess was to give us a sense of reflection and humility in ourselves because things are going bad. It's interesting, right? So what's going bad? Our next artwork we're going to learn.